Good morning. This is the review of the orderIT system for December the 22nd, 2020. We had 16 trades on that day. 6 were identified as buys, 10 were identified as short sells. And we will go. First trade is First trade is BSX. Boston Scientific Corporation. They tripped at 1:20:47 p.m. at a price of $34.51. It was a short sell. Closed the day at $34.36, down 1.32%. So that will be a positive trade. And the day is down below. Indicators. Indicators are looking good. OBV is down, sideways late afternoon. MACD down, sideways for a good portion of the afternoon. DI pretty much down for most of the afternoon. And Bollinger Bands are just showing a steady downward trickle. Next trade is KWEB. That's Crane Shares Trust. Crane Shares CSI China Internet ETF. It tripped at 1:35:54 p.m. at a price of $75.66. It was a short sell. It closed at $75.69, down 1.66%. It closed above its tripping price, so we will see if there's any point where it is below 35. So tricky around here. We'll see 22, 66, 60 here. It's coming down here also. Down also. It made a recovery right at the end of the day. So it made a recovery at the end of the day, but there was a good hour of time where it was, below the tripping price. So I'm going to consider that a positive trade. And indicators, OBV showing somewhat downward movement. MACD is actually showing, early morning it was actually moving up, or say early afternoon it was moving up, and then moving sideways, MACD average wise. DI looks like a good portion of the day it was down, a couple of points where it did peak up, moving positive, early and mid-afternoon, end of the day negative, so it was mostly negative, it looks like. And again, Bollinger Band showing pretty much a steady downward trend. Next trade is GPS, the Gap Incorporated. Tripped at 1:55:04 p.m. at a price of $20.14. Another short sell. Closed the day at 20:07, down 1.62%. And you can see early morning it's actually going down even further. So the day after you would still have made a profit. That's a positive trade. Check the indicators. So OBV down somewhat. MACD actually showing a good steady downward trend for most of the day. DI also showing down for most of the day. And Bollinger Band just a straight downward trend. So next trade is DQ. I thought it was very quick. DACO Energy, New Energy Corporation. It tripped at 2:27:53 at a price of $63.64. It was a buy trade. It closed the day at $64.79, up 5.83%. So that's another positive trade. That's 4 trades. OBV looking good. See, by the end of the day it was moving up. MACD down in the morning and then steadily rising for the rest of the day. DI actually showing that it was heavily downwards, which again MACD kind of like correlates with DI in that aspect, that it was down early morning fairly strongly. And actually a good portion of the day, it didn't really recover until early afternoon is when it started to make a positive movement. So DI is actually showing that it is much negative as positive. Bollinger Band showing the same thing, came down, and roughly around early afternoon it started, well, you can see it was moving sideways, Bollinger Band showing a sideways movement, and then recovering, and actually making a sideways movement again. So even though this came up a bit, it looked like most likely it was up. Yeah, it did. This doesn't look like it's the right trade. 1427, 1427. That's the right trade. I'm just going by the aspect that the price itself, this peak here is actually showing that it was peaking, but you can see we don't have the full indicators are not covering the full day. Early morning is not here, but you can see during this initial point it was actually jumping up, then dropped, and then they steadily increased. So the actual price was showing the stock was moving positive, even though the indicators were not 1% indicating that, but the stock was up, so probably why it was a bit regular in its movement. Next trade is CCRC, China Customs Relations Center Incorporated. It tripped at 2:30:18 p.m. at a price of 334. It was a short sell. It closed at 338, down 45.66%. It's making recovery early morning, up 8.88%. So you would have had to get another stock, but I think there's, well, look at that, the steady decline. You can see that 230 roughly around here, 336, 342, 346. Ooh, 341, yeah, look at that, it was practically side. It tripped and just moved almost 100% sideways. Like, it would have been a very difficult, I was going to say this potentially should have been a positive trade just because from the drop, but Christ, the stock dropped 45%, you know, there's something here, it's recovered early morning, but you can see certainly nothing to the amount that it lost. We'll check to see if the indicators are showing the same thing. OBV, yeah, just dropping. Strangely enough, though, MACD is actually showing a upward trend. It caught here in the afternoon where it dropped a bit on MACD-wise. DI is showing somewhat a downward trend for the day, and then late afternoon it was starting making a recovery. And Bollinger Band basically just showing a steady decline. But you can see, you know, the end of the afternoon it was basically moving sideways. In general, I would say that just because of the amount of down, you're talking almost 50% loss on this stock, that I can't see it recovering the day after, but you can see it is actually recovered a bit. The fact that the stock didn't show any movement below its tripping price, and the fact that it's up, I'm going to say, I can only say it's a negative, even though I doubt this is going to maintain. I don't think it's going to maintain this rise, this early morning rise. I think it's going to be lost. I think this is probably more of a possible trade just because of the drop. Again, we're talking a massive drop here. Something drastic happened with this company that caused this. Half of the loss of the company's value is lost yesterday. So that tells you something right there. In general, this should have been a positive trade. It just never panned out. Next trade is JKS. Jinko Solar Holdings Company. It tripped at 2:35:09 p.m. at a price of 78.12. It was a buy trade. It closed at 78.52. It actually was up 10.11%. And you can see early morning is actually up 4.43%. So day over day, this is actually up, showing 40% rise, at this morning. So this stock definitely is a positive trade, and it's definitely moving very strongly positive. We'll check the indicators. OBV showing somewhat of a steady rise. MACD, same thing, pretty much a steady rise all day long. DI is also showing a somewhat steady rise, mostly positive. It's not heavy. The average on DI is not showing a strong push positive, but in general it's positive. End of the day it was a positive. Bollinger Band showing just a somewhat steady rise for the most part. There's a lot of sideways movement, but the stock was moving upwards. And you can see overall the stock did move up fairly consistently just from the price itself. The next trade is RDSA. That's RDS.A. It tripped at 2:35:14 p.m. at a price of 35.10. It was a short sell. And interestingly enough, we're not getting any price. RDS.A. Interestingly, Yahoo itself is not showing this, so I'm going to have to find a stock for some other news. Just give me 1 second, I'm just seeing if direct on RDS.A. Redstone. Stop it. Let's see. This is an interesting stock. Let's see. I don't know what to close that, the stock itself. And okay. It says this is Royal Dutch Shell PLC. Just have a, well, I saw it here. I was showing that I was searching for it here. No movement after hours on this one yesterday. And we did say this was a short sell, and it ended the day at 34.96. So it ended the day down below its tripping price. So it's a positive trade. Yahoo, for whatever reason, it's not identifying the stock at all. So I don't know if that's something with the site itself. It was down. So, no problem there, the stock was down. So, check. We'll check the indicators just to make sure. This is a 7th trade. Here's a, yeah, 7 trades. Okay. Okay, 14.35, 14. Okay, that's the right stock. OPTI showing it was just moving down. MACD, you can see we didn't catch the price. Didn't start to capture till afternoon, so we only have afternoon activity for indicators. MACD showing straight down. DI down very heavily afternoon. Even though you can see it was making a little bit of a recovery late afternoon, but it was down heavily in the afternoon. Sideways and a down on Bollinger Band. That stock definitely was moving down. Just don't happen to have it for now. Next trade is CSIQ. That's Canadian Solar Incorporated. I've seen that a few times this month. It tripped at 2:35:38 p.m. at 52.49. and it was a it was a buy trade. It closed the day at 53.16, up 10.18%, and early morning it's up 3.33%, so this stock day over day is up 13%, so definitely a strong stock. That's another positive trade. And we'll go look at the indicator analysis for this. Excuse me. OBB showing somewhat a steady rise. You can see a couple of points which MACD is also indicating. So morning or in the afternoon was up, then dropped, early afternoon, then rise up. It's somewhat bouncy a little bit in the afternoon, but it did make a good positive rise MACD-wise. DI showing very much a consistent positive movement, and the points of when it was positive was very heavily positive, which is good. And you see at the end of the day, it's basically starting to move sideways DI-wise. One band showing the same thing. It was basically moving up, and then the end of the day moving sideways. Next trade is CYCC. Cyclocell Pharmaceuticals Incorporated. It tripped at 2:40 p.m. at a price of $5.78. It was a buy trade. It closed the day at 6:40, up 49.53%. We saw a stock down half the value. We see a stock up half value. So obviously, its previous close was probably around $3. The previous close $4.28. So. It was up a lot. So this stock definitely was a very, very, very positive stock. It did trip at 5.78, so even at the tripping point, there was a very, very, very good rise on this stock. So this would have been a very good stock, obviously, to trade on. As it came up above its tripping price by a good amount. Check the indicators. 1440. Okay. OBV is actually not showing as aggressive. You can see it's moving somewhat upwards, but not straight upwards, which you would think you would see in a stock like this. MACD, look at this. MACD showing early afternoon. It jumped, and then let's just say late morning, early afternoon, and then early afternoon till mid afternoon it was dropping, and then started recovering again. Interesting, eh? The averages, and that just shows you that price-wise, it started to come down in the afternoon itself. But again, the price you can see from just the stock itself, it moved up and then it basically moving sideways, which kind of like it gives an indication of that. But the directional index is showing that it was moving pretty much consistently positive. Those 2 points where it dropped, it was indicating negative, but overall the stock was moving positive. And Bollinger Band basically showing moving sideways, but again, it caught it at a very good point below its rise and its final point. So that's, again, a very good stock. Next trade is ED. That trade is Consolidated Edison Incorporated. It tripped at 2:11 p.m. Price of $69.45. It was a short sell. It ended the day at $59.55. It was down 0.43%. Let's see if it was any point 245s roughly around here. So a good 15-20 minutes there. And a good 10 minutes there. So there was a period of time where it was down below. I consider that a positive trade because there were points in the trading day where it was below and you could have gotten out. But you can see the stock itself not 100% downwards, so we'll see if the indicators are showing that consistent or not. OBV, you see it was coming down or showed downward movement volume wise in the afternoon. MACD is actually showing somewhat a consistent downward trend. You can see MACD showing somewhat a reversal or comeback, basically moving positive at the end of the day. DI is actually showing a little bit more positive movement than negative movement. So DI is actually a little bit, different. Probably gets in the aspect that you can see the stock was somewhat bouncing back and forth. But again, there was a point in time where you could have made a positive trade on that one. You just happened to do that. not 100%. Next trade is T. It's AT&T Incorporated. Tripped at 3:10 p.m. at a price of $28.36. It was a short sell. It closed the day at $28.40, so just above its tripping price. It was down though 2.10% for the day. You can see it's making a recovery this morning, up 0.53%, so it's making a recovery. So it didn't drop below at least closing to the point. This is 310, so we're talking last night. So roughly this point, 33. I won't consider that a positive trade. It was down below its tripping price, but we're talking only a few minutes. So, because of that, volume shows a somewhat downward movement. MACD was down and moving up. You can see we only started capturing data in the afternoon for this stock. DI showing pretty much strongly downward. 400 band showing strongly downwards. I'm going to put this as a possible, even though usually when we have a early morning price that's showing a negative of the actual trade operation, I won't. But I think the indicators are showing somewhat a downward trend. I think we just have to be catching it, making a bit of a recovery. But I think the stock would probably continue moving down, and the reason why I would say that's probably a possible trade or possible trade. OXY. Excuse me. Next trade is OXY, Occidental Petroleum Corporation. It tripped at 3:20:05 p.m. at a price of $17.03. It was a short sell. Closed the day at $16.92, down 3.15%. You can see it's making early morning rise, but still below the tripping price. So technically it's down below, but in general, it's still a positive trade. Let's check the indicators. Excuse me. OBB down a bit early afternoon, but you can see it's actually volume-wise was looking to be moving upwards again. MACD showing the same thing. It dropped, and interestingly enough, you see this little bit of a drop appears where it tripped, even though MACD overall is showing very positive movements. DI is showing very positive movement too. So interestingly enough, this stock was moving positive from indicator perspective. The Bollinger Band sideways, end of day recovering. And interestingly enough, it must have opened the price itself. You can see is sideways, and in the afternoon it was just dropping. End of day it was just moving sideways a bit. The stock was down, even though the indicators from the point of when it was starting to be monitored were showing somewhat of a positive movement, but the stock itself was technically down over previous close. Just a particular result. Next trade is Citro Group Incorporated. I'm sorry, that's Citigroup, not Citro. Citigroup Incorporated. Tripped at 3:35 p.m. Price of $59.57. It was a short sell, and closed $59.26, down 3.22%, and it's rising, so it's recovering early morning on this one, up 1.05%, so it's actually making a good recovery, but it's still down below its tripping price, so we consider that a positive trade. indicators. OBD, yeah, this is volume-wise, this stock was dropping. MACD, yeah, dropping. Afternoon definitely dropping. Making a little bit of recovery MACD-wise. DI showing very, very, very negative for the period of time. So they was monitoring the afternoon time and down practically the whole afternoon. Bollinger Bands is showing the stock was moving down. Okay, there's actually two other trades that didn't get caught on my trading system, or I deleted them for some reason. Next trade is OPTI. I'll just view it here. Just going to it directly. Excuse me. Ocean Power. So that's Ocean Power Technology Incorporated. It tripped at 1535.11. At a price of 320. It was a buy. It closed the day at 319, but it was actually up 20.38%. So this stock was up quite a bit. And you see, early morning, it's up. It's moving up again early morning too, even though it did not close. And the stock tripped at 1535. So we're talking not too much time, but 315. 315. It tripped at 330, which was roughly around here, and then it came down, and then come up again. It's not 100%. It did come up above its tripping price, but you know, we're talking a few minutes here. We're not talking extensively. I consider it a strong possible just from the price. And the aspect is, it's up early morning. It's up, so that makes it a very definite possible. We'll check to see if the indicators are showing that this stock is moving in a good movement in a positive direction. Yeah, OBV is actually showing it moving downwards end of the day and sideways for practically the rest of it. MACD is actually showing, yeah, it was moving up, and in the afternoon it started to make a recovery, reversal, and in the end of the day it was actually dropping. So at the end of the day it was dropping from perspective of MACD, so the averages were coming down. DI though shows its index, its directional movement is showing again, DI is actually showing this is actually quite interesting. Is this the right stock? 1530? This is not the right stock. Oh, this is C. Pardon me. I was looking at the wrong indicators. Oh my God, the price and that indicators aren't showing 100%, and the actual end of it was showing that it was moving negative. Okay, there we go. OBD, yeah. End of the day showing it moving positive. DI showing, or MACD showing somewhat a positive movement at the end of the day, or afternoon, I should say. Late afternoon. End of the day, it was coming down a bit. DI showing very positive movements for most of the time. It was really, and look, Bollinger Band just moving upwards, so that definitely is a positive trade. Next trade is DAL, Delta Airlines Incorporated. It tripped at 15:35:17 p.m. It tripped at 38.98. It was a short sell. It closed the day at 38.94, down 2.99%, and early morning it's down 38.65. So this stock is moving down and continuing moving down early morning. We have Yahoo shows the early morning market level indicators. It's showing that it opened down, but it looks like it's made a recovery, so the stock market is showing a recovery, so the fact that the stock is still down shows that it's moving down. Of course, it's an airline, and so this went to the fire, so that probably has a big impact on that kind of business. So that's definitely another positive trend. So that's 13. So the stock was down. We'll see what the indicators are showing. OPTI, no, it's not really showing downward. Basically back and forth, obviously, in the afternoon. MACD is actually showing that it was recovering or was moving upwards in late afternoon, or excuse me, late morning, and then started coming down. But the afternoon was basically moving downwards. DI actually showing a good portion of the day was down, and you see the afternoon basically bouncing back and forth, so basically a little bit of sideways movements in the afternoon, but DI is showing it actually was very strongly moving downwards in the afternoon. Bollinger Band showing the same thing, pretty much downwards a little bit, sideways in the afternoon, downwards at the end of the day. So we can see the stock was definitely down. So that's all the stock for that day. We've had 12 out of 16 stocks, 12 out of 16 stocks, which is 75% positive results you could have accomplished on that day. So it was still a very good day. You can see that the market actually was down a little bit, or down quite a bit overall on that day. So not surprised we saw a lot more short selling than we did buys, but the buys actually, some of them were very good, so some very good upwards movement activity on some stocks, and it was a good day overall. I'll leave it at that. Thank you very much.